What's up, guys? Promise I'm not wearing the same thing 2 days in a row. Scheduled uploads are my friend. Anyway, I wanted to make a video. I've talked a lot about compensatory acceleration training. Fred Hatfield coined it back in the day. I think it is an extremely effective and useful tool to have in your toolbox for any number of reasons. Whether you're, powerlifting, strongman, if you play traditional like field sports, can also be a great tool to have. I'm sure there's some use cases in bodybuilding and hypertrophy as well. Maybe not as pronounced as it is for performance, but you might be able to find some use for it in there. But if you are intermediate, late intermediate, depending upon how we want to define these things, if you've been training a couple years and you know your body and you're honest with yourself, kind of a way to implement it intuitively is just picking like a set number or percentage of whatever your 1 rep max is on a given movement, be it squat, deadlift, bench, overhead press, whatever the case may be, and then picking a set number of reps. In this case, I think I've got footage playing on one of these sides. I was using squats. I don't even know my current 1 rep max on squats, to be honest with you. Since my most recent back tweaking, which has been almost a year now, I've not loaded up anything remotely close to a maximal squat. But anyway, I just picked an arbitrary number of 315, and obviously I was doing warm-ups up to 315, and still those warm-ups I was moving that weight as fast as I could too. And that's the thing with compensatory acceleration. You have to put intent behind the bar. You have to imagine that it is maximal weights on your back in this case, and you are trying to just put everything you can into it. So I started with 315, and I just took 20-pound jumps. And again, I just picked an arbitrary number. I haven't done a training session like this in a while. And I 20-pound jumps, just doing doubles. Once it felt slow, I stopped. That's it. And I think I got to 395, and that's when it felt slow. So I quit. I could have picked like 10-pound jumps and got more sets in. I could have picked 15-pound jumps and got less sets in. But that's, the whole thing with the compensatory acceleration is, the speed. That's the key. Obviously, if you have a device that measures speed, you can be more precise and exact with things like this, and you can get real nerdy with it, and having to move this many meters per second at whatever rates, etc., and take the guesswork out. But if you've been training long enough and you're honest, you have to be honest with yourself. Because you can look on the video, and certainly I think you can see the bar speed slow down at that 395 especially, but it looks, like a pretty solid double. There wasn't really form breakdown so much. I think my hips might have shot back a little bit. I could feel that when I did it. But you could look at those reps, and had I decided to load more after that, if I just showed you that video, you would have said, fair enough. But, I had to be honest with myself, and it wasn't like those felt noticeably harder than what they did at 375. Now from 315, 335, 355, 375, obviously you can feel the weight getting a little bit heavier each jump because gravity. But I still felt like they were moving fast as to what I needed them to move. But once I got that 395, they didn't feel like that anymore, so I stopped. And again, if you're experienced enough, I would, probably a couple years or so with whatever movement you're doing, and honest with yourself, you can self auto regulate these. Pick a percentage number, start at, pick a set jumps, pick set rest times, and Your goal over time would be to, either be able to make bigger jumps in the same amount of sets and end up with a higher number, or, be able to reduce rest times and make the same jumps, or keep everything the same and be able to progressively work up to a higher top end number. The thing is, though, you can't force the progression. And it might be something where, this week I made it to 395 and that was fine. Next week, 375 maybe would be where I call it. Or maybe 375 felt fine, but I don't know. So, I'm not going to make the 20-pound jump this time. I'm going to make a 10-pound jump to 385 and see how that feels. And maybe that feels fine, and I do go to 395, and that's where I stop again. Or maybe 395 even feels good, and I tricked myself, and now we'll go up to 405. Or maybe 375 just feels like shit, and I stop there. That's the thing. You can't force the progression, but it's one of those things where over time, it's going to be, one of those graphs where you're steadily going up. There might be some downs and ups and downs and ups and downs and ups, and maybe a flat line and then a big up and then down up. But over time, you're on that upward trajectory, but you can't force it. Just trying to force it would ruin the whole thing. That then, it defeats the purpose. I've got a playlist, the Juggernaut, or not Juggernaut, the Dreadnought Overhead Press peaking program. It's very much based on this. Like, the meat and potatoes of that peaking program was doing triples with your OHP, doing speed triples, and there was no set number. And it even suggested, starting relatively conservatively and doing triples until it felt slow. And once the speed went away, you stopped your OHP, and then you went on to whatever the secondary movement was for the day and your accessory work. And that's something you can do that it's going to make you stronger. You don't have to constantly be up in the 90% range to get stronger, with whatever your lift is. If this is progressing gradually over time, you're a peaking cycle away from, hitting a new PR. You might be able to just load up a new PR after not having touched anything really heavy, and be able to do it. I wouldn't recommend doing that, but it's not unusual to see that happen. A lot of the clients I intake, my first 4 weeks is conditioning based, and we'll do some straight sets with 50 to 65%, depending upon who they are, how experienced they are, what their numbers are. And I reinforce to them that, hey, on these, I want you to treat it like, 5 singles in a set, and really treat them like maximal singles and put everything you can behind them. And then oftentimes I'll have them do like a technical AMRAP at the end. And then, we'll build off of that. And a lot of times it's not guaranteed, and I don't guarantee like everybody that I intake, or if you want to sign up with me, I'm not guaranteeing you anything. But a lot of times, after those first 8 weeks, the 4 weeks of conditioning, then 4 more weeks of building off of that conditioning block, we really haven't touched anything above 90%. But their first deload week, I will, and everybody deloads in week 9. This is my system. I let them take like RPE 9 singles on the lifts that we've worked on, and the lifts are different for everybody. It's not necessarily squat, bench, and deadlift, but oftentimes they hit new 1 rep maxes without going balls out, with leaving some in the tank. And that's from 8 weeks of very much compensatory acceleration training with some hypertrophy sprinkled in. And it gets a lot of people like going, oh wow, holy shit. I don't have to ram my head into a wall over and over again. Something I was personally guilty of a long time too. And that's without a peak or anything. That's just, and in some cases it's the that people have been have been in that, I'm going to grind and, go heavy all the time. And these first 2 months with me almost acts as a deload in terms of percentages, because they've not worked in these lower percentages in so long, and it gives their body a break from all the heavy stuff. And there's a lot of things at play there, but that compensatory acceleration training is such a powerful tool. And I just wanted to kind of put out there that, especially like for intermediates, probably later stage intermediates, like I said, you need to know your body. You need to be honest with yourself. I'm not going to tell everybody, oh, you have to go buy like some speed tracker or something like that, which would be honest for you. And by all means, if you have the means to do that or you want to do that, feel free, and then look up resources well beyond me in terms of velocity-based training. But if you're honest with yourself and you know yourself, and you can self-regulate and not get greedy, this can be a powerful tool, and it's basically intuitive and auto-regulated by the very nature of it. And it's going to keep you, it's going to reduce the risk for injury greatly, while still providing adaptations and setting that platform and that base for you to build a peak off of, whenever the time comes for you to do that. So that's it, y'all. Peace!